enemy killing you. And I do not see anything to justify from a sound evidence that really clearly supports such an action. So this is what I believe to be correct. Rather, I am afraid that sometimes the suicide bombing is an act of desperation, not even, in fact, a sound strategic way of fighting. In fact, again, if we look at the whole issue of the consequences and the way that this type of this conflict is being conducted, and this is not to say that jihad is not sound. Of course it is compulsory to fight those people who have occupied the land of the Muslims until they are removed. There's no doubt about that. It's farad al-ayn that upon the Muslims to return the land of the Muslims to the Muslims. Any Jew is welcome to live wherever he wants in the Muslim lands. It has always been the case. Alhamdulillah. When the Spanish reconquered Spain, Jews and Muslims, in fact the Jews had their golden age in the rulership and under the rulership of the Muslims. And when the Muslims were expelled and the Jews were expelled, the Jews went to live in the Muslim lands in Morocco and Turkey. They're quite welcome to live in the lands of the Muslims, but to occupy that land, to throw out the Muslims and to remove the Muslims from the position of rulership, this is not something that we can accept as believers. But the manner of conducting the warfare is important, because we don't only fight for the sake of fighting. Jihad has an objective. This is the defensive jihad. It has an objective, and that objective is to remove the enemy. But it seems to me that the results that we see in front of us are that all that this type of activity does is actually seems to do the opposite. Because it makes the Israelis more entrenched, it makes them more aggressive. Every time a Muslim or someone, a suicide bomber, blows up, something, or some women or some children, and then all that happens in reality is the Israelis kill 10 times as many Palestinians. And it doesn't have any real beneficial effect except that. So I don't really, of course I can't volunteer what is the correct strategic way of fighting and so on and so forth, and I don't even pretend to be able to offer the solution in that regard. It only seems to me that it is not really achieving anything. In fact, it may even be doing the opposite of what we desire. And also I do not believe that it is halal to do that. But of course we do hope for our brothers, that for the best for them, and that if they are following the opinion of a scholar, and it's a legitimate opinion, and they're not following their desires, they follow what they believe to be true, then inshallah we hope that their reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But myself, I do not believe this to be sanctioned in the Sharia, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows best, and He is the best knower of all things. Alhamdulillah. Okay, this is a very good question here. As you clearly emphasized at the beginning of your speech that we should make Islamic law the way we live our day-to-day life, how do we enforce this as we are governed by an unjust Western doctrine? This is a very good point. The first thing I want to say is that the injustice of the West is a relative term. Yes, they are unjust, because the most just way of life is that which has been revealed by Allah. And also, the greatest injustice is shirk, without a doubt. However, it is a well-known saying of the scholars, and a well-known principle that they have understood from studying the book and the sunnah, that Allah, and this is very important, brothers and sisters, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will support the system that is just, even if it is disbelieving. And Allah will not support the system that is unjust, even if it is believing. Meaning, if the people are just even if they are kuffar, Allah will support them. And if the system is unjust and the way is unjust, Allah will not support it, even if it is Muslim. Because the sunnah of Allah in the creation concerning this affair, meaning the affair of rulership, the affair of who has the strength from the land, that Allah supports the just. Now we have to be honest about ourselves. We have to, brothers and sisters, be honest about ourselves. We have to stop all the time pointing the finger at everyone else and everything else except ourselves. Because if we compare our countries and our nations, and indeed if we compare our own behavior, we will find that much of the time we are consistently and permanently perpetrating injustice upon ourselves. And that if you compare our countries with their countries and our system with their system, in general, no one who is honest will deny that in the West we find generally we find justice. In our lands, what do we find? Bribery, corruption and injustice. I'm sure really that's why most of us, one of the reasons anyway, why many of us still are sitting here today. That we haven't left, gone back to the countries we came from. That's why maybe we left our countries in the first place. Because you couldn't do anything or go anywhere except that you had to bribe someone. You will never feel that when you go to court you will be treated justly. But that's something that generally most of us, brothers and sisters, living in the West, and I say it, and this is the truth. Until now I feel that when I am in England, I will be treated justly. Of course, at the back of my mind there is the possibility they may get fed up with us and then they'll start doing what they like. But in general, that's what we find. And we have to understand, brothers and sisters, that Allah will support the just people. And until we Muslims, and this answers other questions that have been asked, until we learn to be just, brothers and sisters, most of us can't even be just to each other. We can't be just to each other. I hear stories about, mashallah, some of our brothers, the shabab, the youth. Very beautiful that they are coming back to Islam. But I hear that they are not always just in the way they treat the elders. They are not just. They do not give them the due credit that they deserve. Very quick to condemn. And the other way around. Sometimes the elders, we hear, are too quick to condemn the youth and do not appreciate their enthusiasm. How many of us, brothers and sisters, we are members or we are affiliated to some organization, to some group or to some sect? And when it comes to us criticizing another group or another sect, we will find that we will even be prepared to lie, to cheat, to invent things, to fabricate things, to continue to propagate myths and lies about other people. We are not content only to criticize someone for their errors, where there is a genuine error or what we genuinely believe to be error. No, we have to invent lies about it. We have to invent things about people. We go beyond the realms of justice with each other as Muslims. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. We can't even be just to each other. And if sometimes in our party or our group or our sect, someone is doing something wrong, if we saw that thing being done in another group or another sect, we would be shouting from every mimbar in every mosque, look at these people that are doing that, look at these people that are doing this, have you seen their corruption, have you seen this? But if some of our brothers and our sisters in our group are doing it, we overlook it. Is that justice? Is that justice? No. This is what we call hizbiyah, partisanship. That you do not love and hate for the sake of Allah. You do not withhold and give for the sake of Allah, but rather you do it for the sake of your group or your party or your sect or your mosque or whatever it is, or your country. Oh, some people say, oh, those lebos, they're this and they're that, and you see what they do that. You do the same thing. And they will go, oh, look at those Turks and look at those people and they do this and that, and really attacking them.